All right, good evening, everyone. This is Nithin Ramachandra from the NR Media, NR Hour Sports Show, Nithin Sports Rush. Go check us out on Spotify, iHeartRadio, on all the podcast platforms. And we are live right now on iHeartRadio, Spotify, and the Spreaker app on my phone, where our fans can tune in. And the fans, you already know about the app. You can put your questions in to every guest that we have on the show. Happy Tuesday. I hope everyone is having a great day. Happy New Year. We're midway through January already, which is crazy, but we are back with another special episode for you. Obviously, we're in the midst of the baseball offseason. Next month, pitchers and catchers report already, which is crazy. So there's no offseason for baseball, but we got a perfect guest for this baseball offseason. His name is Clint Hurdle. He's a former MLB manager, player. He had a great playing career also, and obviously a great manager. One of the best old school managers in the game, in my opinion. He managed the Rockies, Pittsburgh Pirates, and he played with the Kansas City Royals, Cincinnati Reds, New York Mets, St. Louis Cardinals, and with the Mets again. So he had 2 stints with the Mets as a player. So, man, what a great career. And now he has a book out there, which we'll get to. We're going to talk about his book. How he got into baseball, his journey, career, best moments, managing his players, and what got into him being a manager and a player. And obviously, he grew up. He was born in Michigan, Big Rapids, Michigan, and now he's living in Florida with his family, friends, and everything. So, Clint Hurdle, I just want to say thank you for joining the show. It's truly an honor to learn from a legend like you, and thank you again. But how are you and your family doing today?
We are doing well, Nithin. Happy New Year to you. Actually, the family, as I had mentioned, my family is in 2 different places right now. My son and wife are in Aspen, Colorado. My son's entering his externship as a pastry chef and baker at a brand new boutique hotel called Mole. Maddie and I are here, and our best friend, Alex, Maddie's caregiver. So we're on the west coast of Florida, much warmer here than it is in Aspen. But thanks for the opportunity to be on your show.
Yeah, no problem. And before we get to your journey and career, tell our fans, being a former manager, tell us like the experience when you were managing and you got to go to the winter meetings, and the off season is always huge for baseball, even to improve all the teams. And as a manager, you always this always excites you because you don't know what the front office is going to do. So from your experience, what was it like being at the winter meetings and getting interviewed about your team and seeing what the front office does to improve for next season?
I think the winter meetings are almost like the halfway point of your off season. You know, your season, you hope it ends in late October. For most teams, though, it ends in the first week of October. So you get a little over 6 weeks off. You reignite, basically all come together as an industry, because there's not just the winter meetings. There's also the vendors, the exhibition place, the media. There's trades that are made, free agents are available. A lot of conversations are had, a lot of hiring going on there too internally for your organization. We also, one of the nice things I've always been a part of with both organizations that I've been in, there's always one night that's dedicated to having a little get together for all the minor league affiliates. They bring their front office people in. We meet, we feed them. Just a wonderful evening. The major league manager usually partakes and is there. Just thanking them for their opportunity, thanking them for the way they take care of our players, and then building that relationship in the minor leagues. That's always a fun night. There's also a Scout of the Year event in which a lot of different scouts get recognized geographic, regionally. There's also all the small meetings you have with agents, talking about their prospective players that they have available. There's also opportunities for you to do some exercises, analytic exercises with your people that are in your room. I want to say, some teams carry a lot more than others, but at any one time in our big boardroom that we had this past year, there was probably 20, 25 people in it at one time. So when you take your 30 organizations, if you just guess that, 20 people a group, you're talking about a lot of people within the industry that are working in the winter trying to get things done. It's an exciting time. The fans are all downstairs. All the media is in place too. There's interviews going on around the clock, breaking trades. So it's very exciting. It's before Christmas. a lot of activity, and they usually pick a warmer climate, and we're indoors, which makes it nice for everybody.
Yeah, and speaking of winter meetings, a lot of things happened this offseason. There's still more to come. And but I want to get to your career. You grew up in Michigan, and talk about your early life and growing up. And when did you get interested in playing baseball, getting into the sport of baseball?
Well, I was born in Michigan. My family lived there until I was 5. We moved to Florida. However, we went back to Michigan every year to my senior year in high school. So 12 straight years going back, spending a month in Michigan. I never got Michigan out of me. I have been a Lion fan, a Piston fan, a Red Wing fan,
Oh, wow.
and a Tiger fan all my life, and the University of Michigan all my life. So I played ball in Florida. My father moved us down to the east coast of Florida, a little place called Merritt Island, went through Little League, went through Babe Ruth, went through American Legion. One of the nuances on my Legion team was Bruce Bochy. Bruce Bochy and I played against each other in high school. I was a sophomore. He was a senior. We played on the same Legion team. I was fortunate. I was drafted out of high school. I was drafted high, first round, 9th pick. Went through the minor league system of the Kansas City Royals, played A-ball, played AAA, then got to the big leagues at a very young age. I was 20 years old when I got to the big leagues. Baseball was always my first choice as a sport. I also did participate in football. I had scholarship offers in football. I had academic scholarship offers as well. Matter of fact, Harvard offered me an academic scholarship and to go and play sports as well, but they didn't offer athletic scholarships. It's a school known for its learning and for developing leaders. So there were some choices and some opportunities to create some leverage and pick a good situation. Once I got chosen by the Kansas City Royals, I was the first pick, so I was in a good position to get a good deal. We got a deal that was fair. Baseball had always been my first love, and we embarked upon the journey.
Wow. Speaking of, so for you, what was it like playing multiple sports and a lot of players now in the younger generation playing multiple sports? And for you, what did you learn from playing multiple sports growing up?
I still get asked this question today from parents. Should my son play multiple sports? And I say, absolutely. Absolutely. It just gets in a different part of your brain. Football is a sport that takes you to a place. Baseball is a sport that takes you to a different place. Basketball, lacrosse, soccer, tennis, golf. They're all sports. You use different muscles. You do different parts of your brain in which to acquire information, your learning skills, how you decipher information. I think it's good for your overall development. There's sports that you're by yourself. Golf, you can be by yourself. Tennis, you can play singles. Swimming, you can singles. But in the other sports, it's a team concept that's based around community. Plus, it's just for athletic balance. You use different athletic muscles in all the different sports. So for me, it was never even a question. It was how much I could fit in. But when I got to my senior year, based on the fact that I was a high school All-American football player and a high school All-American baseball player, basketball just kind of ran out of gas, and I dropped that sport. Went to 2 sports through high school, but I always loved competing and being on a team. Football for one reason, baseball for the other. Just made my heart beat. Baseball was I was more passionate about baseball than football.
Wow. Fans, please tune in on the Speak Wrap. Put your questions in. We'll answer some of your questions for former MLB outfielder manager Clint Hurdle is on the show right now. Clint, so talk about your playing career, and you play with a bunch of different teams, and you put up some great numbers: 32 home runs, 193 runs batted in. So talk about your playing career. What was that like playing for multiple teams and traveling throughout your career?
Well, having an opportunity to play big league baseball was a dream come true. From the time I was 6 in the backyard with my dad. I think I was 5 when my dad first looked me in the eye and said, "Hey, you want to play catch?" And that changed the trajectory of my life, Nithin. I mean, right up still. I'm 67 now, and I'm still playing catch. As a matter of fact, later this week, I hope to get over and play catch with my father, who's going to turn 91 this Friday.
Oh, wow, that's amazing.
It is amazing. But to be on a team, and then to travel around, and you always kind of wonder, I wonder what it'd be like to play for that team. Maybe I wonder what it'd like to play in New York. I played for the Royals, I played for the Reds, I played for the Mets, and I played for the Cardinals. Mm-hmm. So passionate baseball town in St. Louis, a lot of tradition. the Royals were establishing their own tradition at the time. We had some huge series with the Yankees back in the late 70s, early 80s. And then playing in New York, I think that's just a blessing. That it's too bad every player can't get that opportunity, because playing in New York is just different. I played for the Mets and never played for the Yankees, but going into Yankee Stadium is different. I went from being an everyday player to a backup player to a platoon player. I caught in the bullpen. So I experienced all the different things that you're going to experience. I was never a great major league player. I played with some great players. I've had some players that I've coached or managed enter in the Hall of Fame. Todd Helton this past summer.
Yeah.
I was his minor league hitting coordinator. I was his big league hitting coach, and then his big league manager. We've known each other since 1995 when he was drafted. Andrew McCutchen was an MVP that I was able to work with as a manager. Larry Walker was an MVP that I was a hitting coach and a manager for. And then there was Josh Hamilton in 2010. I was a hitting coach for an MVP, his MVP season there. So I've always been immersed in the game. I've always been a fan of the game and a student of the game. And as I shared with some people at the ABCA convention last weekend in DC, I was in the uniform at the right time for me.
Mm-hmm.
When I played, you can talk about Vita, Catfish, Lefty, Thurman, Reggie. A lot of guys with one name. You say one name and you know who you're talking about. They're pretty impactful people. Pete, Johnny Bench was a teammate. Concepcion was a teammate. Oz, the Wizard of Oz was a teammate. So this will be my 50th season in professional baseball. And I had 33 at the major league level, combining player, major league coach, and manager. So it has been an unbelievable ride. I've been blessed beyond measure, and I still look for whatever the future's got in front of me.
By the way, before we go any further, I just want to say rest in peace, Ricky Henderson, and rest in peace, Pete Rose. Those are two legends that we lost in the game of baseball recently. So rest in peace to them. And they had wonderful careers. And my friend George just broke some news. I don't know if you want to hear this, but Justin Verlander just signed with the new San Francisco Giants.
I heard that right before I got on. On some hard news, Bob Veal, who's a guy that I knew of, the left-hand pitcher of the Pirates, he passed away today.
Oh, no.
It's been crazy of all the men we've lost within the game. But as I get older, I go to more funerals now than I go to weddings, that's for sure. But the number of teammates that I've lost, men I played against, the game of baseball it's a brotherhood in a lot of different ways. So when you're on one team, that's a brotherhood. When you lose a guy, it's like losing a brother. And then the news is always exciting. Just to hear today, okay, Verlander, how about that? That's a different dynamic. He's going to the Bay, going to recreate one more year. What's he got left in the tank? Knowing Verlander, he likes to compete. He doesn't walk out not being on top. It's probably a big year for him to push all his chips in. The Giants, they got to find a way to compete in that division. It's one of the toughest divisions in baseball.
Yeah.
And they've got to find answers to what the Dodgers do, the Diamondbacks do, and what the Padres do.
Yeah, and we have a fan question here on my phone. One of our fans wants to know, would you consider coming back to manage if the right opportunity comes about?
It's a great question. I've been out 5 years now, and some days it feels like that long, and some days it doesn't. I did take 2 years off. I spent the last 3 years working for the Rockies as a special assistant to the GM, and I've been working mainly in player development and working with the scouting department. If the right situation came upon me, I think I would definitely like to talk about it. I'd have some interest. I think I've got one more big push in me.
Oh, wow.
Obviously, I got a couple buddies in their 70s managing. Bochy. Ron Washington, who I worked together with in Texas, and actually he offered me the bench coach job.
Oh, wow.
Before the 2024 season, but we couldn't come to terms with the front office. Mm-hmm. But I think I have one more push in me if it was meant to happen. But it'd have to be in the right spot.
Wow. Yeah, so it looks like you heard it here, fans. It looks like Clint Hurdle is not officially retiring. He wants to come back. So whoever needs a manager, please contact Clint Hurdle. I'm telling you right now, he's one of the best, in my opinion. And also, obviously, Bruce Bochy. And man, I would love to see you come back to manage a team, man. I think you deserve another opportunity, in my opinion. And but I want to get to one of your favorite, in my opinion, moments here. But at your age 20, when you were 20 years old, you were labeled as a phenom by Sports Illustrated back in the day. So talk about that moment. What was that like for you?
Well, it was a little overwhelming. At the age of 20, I don't know how smart anybody is. And I think about it now, sometimes kids don't even get into a player development system until they're 21 or 22 and have gone through 4 years of college. I was in the big leagues at the age of 20. The next year was my first full rookie season. The Sports Illustrated cover, with me on the front, this year's Phenom. That was a lot to swallow. It was a lot to digest. It turned out to be an invaluable teaching lesson and some hard lessons learned along the way. I didn't really do a lot to earn that. I mean, there's guys that played in the big leagues 10 years and never been on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Mm-hmm. I hadn't even gotten to the big leagues. Well, I played a month in the big leagues. And there you are on the cover. I think it might add to expectations, whether they're personal or they're outside. Professional expectations, fans' expectations, maybe even the organization's expectations. But I learned some valuable lessons along the way. Number one, I probably got caught up in trying to please everybody. Mm-hmm. And what I learned by doing that is by pleasing everybody, you'll probably please nobody. At least, and most important, you're not going to please yourself. You need to find your authentic self. You need to stick with that person. You need to keep that close circle of friends around you. To be 20 in the big leagues, traveling, money, a lot of entitlement. It gave me maybe a false sense of who I was at times. But then again, when you go out on the field to play and you're facing some of the best players in the world, and you're out there playing with them, it's a pretty special situation to be in. I learned a lot from it. There's no doubt about it. Was actually, in the playoffs at the age of 21, 1978, we did get in the playoffs against the Yankees. 79, we got in the playoffs against Oakland. 78, 79, we were out 80. We were in the playoffs and went to the World Series with against the Phillies. So at a young age, I experienced a lot.
And another interesting story that we found, speaking of your father, he worked at the Kennedy Space Center, and you were a bat boy for a couple of teams for the, I think it was the Coco Astros or something. Correct me if I'm wrong, but talk about that, because we're all about family on the show, and we love talking about the players' family and whoever's on the show, and talk about your father working at the Kennedy Space Center, and for you getting experience early in baseball as a bat boy.
Well, my dad did finally get the job. I mean, he worked his way up through Grumman, through Lockheed, and then he found a position at the Space Center. And he worked on the launch team, which meant he would go in. You'd have to go in 24 hours before launch time, and sometimes if there are delays, they'd end up staying. He'd always take a suitcase. Sometimes the launches are at night. Sometimes they're during the day. So my dad's work shifts changed. I'm trying to break in at Little League Baseball at the time. So there's many times my dad would manage a team. He may miss a practice two here and there. So my mom would show up. She would actually go out in the backyard and catch me. Now, Nithin, this is a pretty interesting thing, because my mom would catch me, which was, the good news was she was very talented and skilled. The bad news was I wanted my stuff to be a little nasty, so my mom couldn't catch it, but there wasn't anything I could throw that she couldn't handle. Growing up in a baseball family, we were always at the park. My sisters would go to the park. They ended up playing softball. But eventually one summer, my dad was able to get me out to the Astros complex in Cocoa. I ended up picking up a part-time job. I worked when they were home it was Class D at the time. Cocoa Astros. Bob Watson was the catcher on that team. John Mayberry played first base on that team. Wow. And how rewarding it became later was Mayberry and I were teammates. Matter of fact, the first home run I hit in the first game I played, my second at bat, Mayberry was on base. And then I ended up doing a lot of things with Bob Watson over the years, from playing against him, then working with him. He was a president of the National League there for a while. And just two wonderful men that I've known for a long time. But the experiences of working in a clubhouse, shining shoes, hanging up laundry, putting the laundry back in the lockers. I can remember guys flipping us quarters, and we thought we were the richest kids in the world. We take our 4 or 5 quarters, we get a hot dog and a Mountain Dew and a Snickers bar, and that was dinner every night around ball season. It was a lot of fun. It was fun in the summer, and it was a great experience to remember.
Yeah, we have another fan question here for you on my phone. One of our fans wants to know, do you remember how many ejections you got throughout your career as a manager?
I do. It was actually brought to my attention. We have a big party every March. It's called Clint Hurdle Hot Stove. We throw it to raise money for my daughter's syndrome. She was born with a birth defect, Prader-Willi syndrome. But the MC for the event one year was Robbie Ikmakowski, who's the sideline reporter for the Pirates. And Robbie came down and it turned into a roast of Clint Hurdle while we were there. And it got to be really funny. And he asked if anybody knew how many ejections I got. And at the time, I didn't have any idea. And somebody guessed 50, goes higher, 55 higher, 60 higher, 62 higher, 65 lower, 64. And he goes, correct. He had 64 lifetime ejections. Well, Nithin, I'm thinking 64, 17 years. It's not even 4 ejections a year. That's not too bad. I'm trying to rationalize in my mind. And he goes 64, which makes him 13th all time in Major League Baseball history for being ejected. Now, 13th all time, that's kind of high.
Yeah.
And nobody's going to get thrown out anymore with the replay system the way it is. Ejections are down dramatically. So, yeah, 64 ejections. I'm going to tell a little story here if you don't mind.
Yeah.
The funniest non-ejection I ever got.
Oh, wow.
We were having a tough series. We were playing horrible. We ended up playing 5 games in 4 days against, I think it was the Cardinals. It was before the break. And we had an ump make a bad call at third one night. The next night, he made a bad call at second. I run out for both of them. Third day, it's another bad call at first. And I run out. I might have got ejected that night, I think. But then the last night I came out, he's at home plate. And it's the strike zone. I don't know. I go out and I hand my cards to Jeff Bannister on my bench coach. I said, this is it. I'm getting run again. I can't watch this. I got to take care of the players. So I go out there, we walk to the side, and I start yelling at him. He goes, about halfway through, he goes, Clint, you can call me whatever you want me. You can yell as loud as you want. I'm not throwing you out. Your team is terrible. For 4 days, you've been terrible. If I got to watch this for 4 days, you got to watch this for 4 days. You can stay out here all night. I'm not throwing you out. That's it. Go back to the dugout. Stay here. I don't care. I didn't have anything else to say, so I go back to the dugout, and Bannister's like, well, I thought you were going to get thrown out. I said, he declawed me. I went out there and he told me we're so bad,
wow.
he's gonna force me to stay and watch us.
That's crazy. Wow. Yeah, so that's an interesting story right there. So tell our fans, for you, obviously the draft is different from now, but talk about your draft experience. You got drafted in 1975. So talk about that experience, 9th overall.
Well, back then, there's no social media. So scouts would show up. They may try and connect with somebody that knew your father or your parents, the high school coach they'd work through more often than not. You'd get a phone call, a hello. I was fortunate that I played my sophomore year. We had a senior on our team named Waldo Williams, who was he was a middle linebacker, fullback during this football season, but he was a catcher. He ended up getting drafted by the Baltimore Orioles, but by scouts coming to watch him, I got exposure playing. So one of the guys that saw me play in my 10th grade was JV then. I wasn't on JV, but 10th grade was high school, 10 through 12. Bill Fisher, a scout with the Royals, saw me first, and he watched me for 3 years. He saw me more than anybody else. But towards my senior year, about halfway through, I could tell that I had a chance to get drafted by the number of scouts that were showing up at the park every game. And a couple of them would come up to my father and, say, hey, does your son want to play baseball? We heard he's a good football player. Is he going to go to football? My dad would say, he was smart. He said, well, time will tell. Mm-hmm. He loves baseball, but if, the deal doesn't work or he doesn't get drafted where we think he should, and, he can always go play football. And he could go to Harvard. So I had some leverage. I had some opportunity. I had one team call me up back in the day, the Oakland A's, and they called me on my rotary phone hanging up in the wall at home and asked to speak to me. And my mother goes, hey, Clint, somebody's on the phone with you. I said, who is it? She gave me a guy's name I'd never heard of. She goes, oh, by the way, he said he's a scout for the Oakland A's. Wow. I said, okay. Well, I get on the phone and the scout tells me, hey, Clint, we have you on our draft radar. We pick, 23rd. It was back when the A's were good. He goes, so we've got one of the last picks. If we pick you, the offer's $25,000. Here's my number. You call me back and tell me yes or no. $25,000 to be a first pick, the 23rd pick of the first round. So it was kind of heartbreaking news to think that's it. And I've got to call him. He's not even going to call me back. I'm just going to wait till the draft. So the draft wasn't on TV. You had to just wait till they picked you and then they called you. We got a call around dinner time the next day that we were picked by the Royals. Bill Fisher, the scout that had seen me play the most, was involved in that process. Ninth pick, he came over that night. My dad and him sat down, 3 or 4 different meetings over 3 or 4 days. We worked out a deal. And yeah, it was just, the old way you did it. You just talked to the family, you sat in the living room, you had a pizza and you had some soft drinks and you figured it out.
Wow. Yeah, so we have another fan question here. They want to know who was the funniest player that you managed in your careers.
Funniest player. Well, I've been fortunate. I had a lot of funny players. Funniest player I managed. Did they say that?
Yeah, they want to know the funniest player that you managed in your career.
I'm thinking through my days in Kansas, in Colorado. I'm thinking now through my days in Pittsburgh.
Mm-hmm.
Truthfully, Josh Harrison might have been one of the funniest guys I've ever managed.
Oh, wow.
Not only did he have a crazy skill set, made the All-Star team in 2014, funny guy, sense of humor, cutting up. He was very funny. Andrew McCutcheon does some impersonations that are hilarious. That's the one thing you learn about also when you're inside the clubhouse. There's a lot of skill sets that a lot of the fans don't ever get to see. Some guys can paint, some guys can sing, some guys can draw, some guys can do impersonations. But one of the funniest, Josh Harrison might be the funniest guy that I've been around.
Wow. Josh Harrison, man, underrated player in my opinion, and a great infielder too. And speaking of Andrew McCutcheon, congrats to him on a great career. He's still going at it. He's back with Pittsburgh. He signed with Pittsburgh this all season, so another run at Pittsburgh. And for you, I want to ask you a two-parter question. For you, what was it like managing Todd Helton? You brought him up before, obviously Hall of Fame last year, one of the best, greatest first basemen to play the game. And talk about what was that like, being a manager for him. And also, I want to tell our fans what was it like winning the Manager of the Year award in 2013.
Well, I got to manage a few MVPs, a lot of All-Stars, a lot of guys that won batting titles and even home run titles. Todd Helton was probably the most competitive player I've ever managed, where, people would talk about what's his bling, what's his this, what's his that. All Todd Helton wanted to do was beat your ass when he walked across the white stripe. He had a football player's mentality. He worked so hard on his defense, he became a Gold Glover. He could hit a good pitcher's best pitch, right-hander, left-hander. You look at those stats from the 2000 season, they'll blow your mind. His numbers on the road, he wasn't just a Coors Field hitter. His numbers on the road are dynamic. Numbers at home, crazy good as well. Consummate team player, consummate professional, played when he was hurt, left it all on the field. And then to be with him, he invited my wife and I to be with his family at the Hall of Fame induction this summer. We were on his A-list. I don't think you can pay anybody that you care about a higher tribute and put him on your A-list. We were there for everything in Cooperstown. He made some nice comments in his Hall of Fame speech about our relationship. We still close today. We know each other. I've known Todd longer than I've known any player, both personally and professionally. Know his wife, Christy. Know the girls, Tyranny Faith, Gentry Grace. Knew his mom, knew his dad. Know Christy's parents. It's just become a family thing. We're up in the Cape Cod League. Beginning of November, he got inducted in the Cape Cod League Hall of Fame, and he asked me to be his presenter. So super talented ball player, but just a good man that I've grown to love and appreciate. When people ask me about the Manager of the Year award, I always say, it's nice. It's over here in my office in the corner, Baseball Writers Association of America, National League Manager of the Year 2013. However, Nithin, there's never been a manager of the year of a fourth place club.
Mm-hmm.
You don't get the manager of the year unless you have a good team.
Yeah.
You have good players. And if you have good players, it usually means you have good coaches. So there's a lot of fingerprints on success on that award. I was fortunate that the 2013 season was iconic and historic in Pittsburgh Pirate history for a lot of reasons. We snapped a 20 consecutive season losing streak. It was our first trip back to the playoffs in 21 years. So there was a lot of positive emotion, a lot of fun time for the fans to get back into it. PNC is one of the most beautiful ballparks in either league to witness a game, and the fan base is fantastic.
Yeah, and speaking of Pittsburgh, tell our fans real quick, what do you like about their future? And I think they're close to being a winning team again.
Well, I sure hope so. It's been 5 years of hard.
Yeah.
Skeens got on the scene. They've been able to develop some pitching on their own. They've still struggled putting together a consistent offense. 1 year the bullpen was pretty solid. Last year, it leaked a little bit. I know Ben Sherrington, Travis Williams, and Derek Shelton are doing everything they can to get it better. I have a piece of my heart in Pittsburgh. I'm pulling for them to be better, to do better. They've got a good starting rotation in place. And with a kid like Skeens, I think back to Valenzuela's rookie season and Dwight Gooden's rookie season. We haven't seen anything like that until Skeens has come along as far as mastering professional hitters his rookie season. We'll see where it goes. I hope it goes well. I hope they can stay healthy. Time will tell. But I'm rooting as much for the fans of Pittsburgh as I am for the team.
Yeah. So before we let you go, would you like to say anything to your family, friends, give any shout outs to anybody on the show?
Well, the shout outs, they go just back to the fan bases in Colorado. I'm still working with the Rockies. I'll be out there next week with scout meetings. The fan base in Pittsburgh, a lot of love. I've actually got some traction on social media now. My son, Christian, challenged me about 18 months ago to start getting my positive messaging out and not just